Senate Democrats are plowing ahead with their sweeping election reform bill, H.R. 1. If you haven't heard of it, that's what it's called. They claim it's necessary to protect voting rights that are under attack across this country. But Republicans have pledged to fight this bill. They're calling it nothing more than a Democratic power grab. And joining us now to talk more about this is Oklahoma Senator James Lankford. Senator, good morning. Nice to have you back on.
Good morning. Good to see you again.
You too. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell is calling H.R. 1 a partisan takeover of federal elections. But Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, he just doesn't agree. He talked about this yesterday. Let's take a listen to what he had to say, and then we'll get some reaction.
The bill before this committee has a very simple premise: make it easier, not harder, to vote. S1 would nullify many of these voter suppression laws and protect the rights of American voters, whether they cast their ballots for Democrats or Republicans. It would automatically register American voters when they get a driver's license, guarantee at least 15 continuous days of early voting, end partisan gerrymandering, and bring transparency to our campaign finance system.
All right, so Senator, where are we with the bill right now, and does this bill have any real chance of actually passing in the Senate?
We're going to work as hard as we can to be able to stop this bill, because this bill not only makes it easy to vote, it also makes it easy to cheat. The design of the bill, in fact, is to make it easier to cheat. It does things like same-day registration with no voter ID at all. So you could literally walk up to a polling place, say your name, register on the spot, vote on the spot. Clearly, that's a way to be able to have lose voter integrity, that is. It also keeps states from cleaning up their voter rolls. So if someone dies, for instance, they can't go back through and to be able to clean those out. If someone doesn't vote several elections in a row and they've been automatically mailed ballots, it doesn't allow states to be able to stop that. It also does what's called ballot harvesting and requires it in every state. So a third-party individual, some political campaign, could literally go door to door and to say, have you got a ballot yet? If you do, great, we'll go ahead and fill it out together on the porch, then I'll go turn it in for you. Clearly, that's a method to be able to do fraud as well. So there's all kinds of problems in this bill. They know there's all kinds of problems in this bill, but they're accelerating through it. So our push is, we want to make voting easy. We want everyone to be able to vote. We want everyone to vote.
Right.
But we also want to make it hard to cheat, and we think it's a pretty reasonable place where most Americans are.
Well, and back to the voter ID thing and what we just went through in the state of Georgia about having an ID to vote. You need an ID to do so many things in this country. Isn't this notion, this assumption that black and brown people, minorities being able to get an ID, isn't that really reverse racism? Basically assuming that they don't have the ability, that someone doesn't have the ability to get an ID in this country?
That is exactly what it is. It's also one of those things they build on it to say, apparently they can't open a bank account, apparently they can't go into any federal building, apparently they can't do just the most basic things on travel and get on an airplane. So again, we want to have good laws. In my state, in Oklahoma, you can have your driver's license, you can use a utility bill, you can use a library card. It's just got to be something with your name on it. That's a pretty reasonable way to be able to do it. In Georgia, even, they said you can just give us your last 4 digits of your Social Security number and your birth date. That's all you have to have. That's entirely reasonable. All it is trying to verify, is this the person that actually should be voting? That should be normal for us to be able to have that conversation, rather than them saying it's total voter suppression if we want to verify it's actually the voter that's actually voting. It's not voter suppression. It's just trying to be able to protect the integrity of the ballot.
Yeah, and I think people need to remember that a lot of the measures that were put in place in the fall were done so to make it easier for people to vote during the middle of a deadly pandemic. Republicans, and this is with everything going on in this country right now, several Republicans in the Senate are calling this bill enemy number one. Do you agree?
It is. It is what they call For the People Act, what we call For the Politicians Act. This thing is designed to be able to protect Democrat politicians around the country and the methods that they use in elections. We want fair elections. We want everyone to be able to vote. But this is clearly a way they're trying to undermine the integrity of the ballot, so that literally from here on out, we would never have an election where we can really trust the result. Why would we ever want to set up a system like that? Our democracy is based on this most simple principle that when you vote in this republic, you know the person you're voting for actually is the one that's elected, and that election is free and fair. So let's maintain that as our basic priority and allow states to be able to run their elections.
Senator Lankford, I know you've been a strong proponent of protecting religious liberties for a long time now in the United States Senate. What are your latest efforts on that front right now?
We actually work on that all the time, on basic things on religious liberty, protecting things like the conscience rights of individuals, which is one of the things that immediately this administration stepped in and started saying we want to start imposing hospitals that are Catholic hospitals to be able to force them towards abortions, force doctors and nurses that have a moral objection to abortion to participate in abortion and not protect their conscience rights. So we're stepping into that to be able to push back. There's even cases that are going through right now in Indian tribes and allowing them to be able to practice their religion. We want to be able to continue to protect that. For individuals that are in our country, they need to be able to live their faith if they choose to have a faith. In America, you don't have to choose to have a faith. But if you do, the government should not restrict you from actually living your faith. That should be a basic principle. That shouldn't be a partisan issue. That should be a constitutional American issue.
Yeah, that's why we came here. That's why we came to the New World, Senator. I want to talk about the border for a moment. Today marks 50 days since your colleague, former colleague Kamala Harris, was tapped to manage the crisis. She still hasn't traveled to the border. You're the ranking member of the Government Operations and Border Management Subcommittee. Tomorrow, Alejandro Mayorkas is going to be testifying. I don't know where to start. What are you going to ask him? A lot to go over.
Well, I would tell you, I don't know where to start on the number of questions to ask him as well. He's gone down to the border several times. Unlike Kamala Harris, Mayorkas has gone to the border several times. But when he's gone, he's chosen not to go to certain places that are the most controversial. He just skips them, I assume because cameras are also traveling with him. He doesn't want people to be able to see those areas. So I want to be able to talk to him about that. I want to be able to talk to him about all the letters and requests that we put in for data and information that they've just stalled us and not actually turned that information over. I want to ask him why the federal government is not admitting that this is a crisis, yet they're contacting NASA and USDA and other entities and saying, hey, we need volunteer help. Can you send us some of your agricultural experts to be able to come to the border to be able to help manage the processing of children? Can NASA send people down to the border? We want to ask, okay, why is the Federal Emergency Management setting up there when they won't even call this a crisis, yet they've called FEMA in the process? We want to talk about why we have an even higher number of people being encountered in May than we did in April, and April was a 20-year high,
right,
and the number continues to be able to go up. And I want to ask them about some things that they've done that actually President Trump put into place that this administration's quietly trying to be able to bring the numbers down by engaging back in some of the Trump policies, why they took those away in the first place. Issues like trying to get Mexico to enforce their southern border. That's a reasonable thing to be able to do. President Trump put that in place. This administration just ignored that until the numbers become so high. Now they're trying to get Mexico to enforce their southern border. Good. There's a lot of other Trump policies they put in place to be able to protect the border area and protect the security of our nation. This administration needs to put back in place. That's the real problem. This open border Biden plan is really a result of his policies he's put in place, not something else that's occurred.
Bad policies that he put in place starting on day one, January 20th. Senator, those are all very reasonable questions. I hope that you get reasonable answers in return. I hope that he does not stonewall you. Those are all questions that need to be answered at this point. Oklahoma Senator James Lankford, thanks so much for being with us. We appreciate it. Good to see you.